pandemic, do you speak tech? The new normal. I hope it's not normal for too long. But I do believe that this shift to online, meetings and learning and working, I do think that while it may not be to the extent that it is now, I do see this, companies and educations and that taking advantage of the distance learning and of, being able to get to customers and get to your students via online and just breaking down borders in that. So I hope that even if you don't, even if you're not teaching online, that there might be some tips to help you out here. And so, yeah, this was our last session that got rescheduled due to some tech issues. So thank you so much for joining us. And if you go to the ERLC website, they will have the recordings from the other sessions from February and March. So yeah, we're going to be exploring strategies for effective use of technology, sort of three kind of buckets. So enhancing online second language learning, enhancing engaging students in the video chat, because that can sometimes be difficult. How do you, really know that they're actually engaged with the content and not just have their cameras off and not really, paying attention in that? And how do you then take all this learning that we've been doing online for at least the past year or longer? How do we bring that back into the classroom when we can hopefully meet face to face and again? So yeah, we broke those into just three until we meet again. So that enhancing online, excuse me, the second part, can you hear me now, engaging students, and then when we meet again. Super quickly, I work for ISLE, the Institute for Innovation at Second Language Education at Edmonton Public Schools. So we specialize in providing professional development and doing research and creating resources and that for second language educators. I also volunteer for the Second Language Intercultural Council, or SLIC, with the Alberta Teachers Association, who is partnering with the ERLC Edmonton Regional Learning Consortium today to present this series. And I love EdTech. And I loved it before it was cool. So we're going to be using PeerDeck today. What I'm going to do is just sort of go get the thing started here. And so PeerDeck is a really neat application or website that allows you to have kind of make your slide decks interactive. So if you're already using Google Slides, then PeerDeck has a neat little add-on that I'll actually show you sort of how it works here and show you the nuts and bolts and the kind of behind the curtain here a little bit. Some districts or some divisions do have licenses. So I know, for example, Edmonton Public Schools has purchased a premium license for their teachers. So do check that out. It's what we call a freemium. So there are certain questions or certain features that are free, and then other ones you pay for the, to be able to use them. They also have a website. So actually, I'm just going to share my entire screen because I do end up kind of going back and forth. So if you're not using Google Slides, that's totally cool. You can create your slide decks within PeerDeck. So you can go to the website and create them there. And I believe you can even upload PowerPoints. There's got to be a way to do that. And so what I do, though, is I take slide decks or, presentations that I already have, and I just sort of trick them out with PeerDeck a little bit with the add-ons. So you would go to add-ons, and then you go to get add-ons and you search for PeerDeck. And now since I already have it on here, I'm just going to show you how, oh, look, there it is. And it's installed. And so add-ons are kind of neat because they can kind of just let you make your documents and things like that a little bit more tricked out, is what I like to say. And so we'll see here, we've got PeerDeck on the side. Now I can ask students a question. So this is me turning my slide deck into a PeerDeck. So let's say if I wanted to ask you a question or insert a question, I can just do that right here, multiple choice. And it's just working. And what it's going to do is I can insert my choices here for A, B, C. So this is what my correct answers are going to be. And let's just say, like, I'm actually just going to say A, B, and C, just to show you how it would work. So this is me creating the answer key. And all it's going to do to turn this slide deck into a question is it's going to add this thing on the bottom. So this kind of signals to PeerDeck, this is a multiple choice question. And then on my slide, I would have, obviously here, I would have typed a question, right, for students. Now, if I decide, oh no, I actually don't want to have this question here, I can just delete it. And then PeerDeck will no longer, have that a question. So I can also have students answer with some text. So multiple choice, answer with a number, a website, and the drawing and dragging. So the first three are the free, and then the last three are the ones that you pay a little more for. So what I'm going to do here, what else is really neat is you can actually use some PeerDeck questions. And so we go right to their template library, and they've got like beginning of the lesson, during lesson, end of lesson. So kind of exit ticket things, do now things. And then these are sort of little transitions and reflections and things like that. So I'll just show you quickly. So as you come in and get settled, follow these 3 instructions. So they have some, but you can obviously edit that slide, right? What did you learn from the homework? Type 2 things you already know about today's topic. And so they've got some really super generic ones that you can kind of use for anything. And you can obviously, change what it says, right? And I would just click on it and it's just going to insert that slide into the next one down. I'll just show you what that looks like because it's pretty slick. There you go. And then if I want, I can just say, how was the video that I started class with instead, or whatever, I wanted that to, if I wanted something different than a homework assignment. And then they also have these critical thinking, and I actually super love these the social emotional learning. And you might think, oh, that's a little, but it's neat. What's filling your bucket today and what's draining it. And I think especially when you're working online with students to, I don't know, just have that, a little pause to kind of think in that and recenter and sort of be a little bit mindful can help. A moment of silence, stress check, those kinds of things. So what I'm going to do is just start the lesson. And so there's student paced and instructor paced. So student paced is if you were doing this like asynchronously. So for example, if you had students that were going to do the PeerDeck, but at home on their own, and so they're going through the slide, maybe with a video or audio of you, or maybe not. If you're doing this with students like directly online, then we're going to do the instructor paced, which means that as I advance on my slide, it's going to advance for you as well. So I'm going to do that instructor pace. And what I will have you do, I have to sign in. And reauthorize. Just keep saying yes to everything. I'm probably promising them my firstborn, but PeerDeck is worth it. Here we go. So it's going to join a code for us. Now, if you would like to join, you're going to go to joinpd.com, and it's going to ask you for the code, which is TQIBGL. So troubling quizzes, instantly bother green lemons. And I can even get you a link, which I'm going to slap into the chat. So do students have to log in? Great question, Joe. The last time I ran this, it asked me, do you want students to have to log in or not? And I said not. This time it didn't ask me, which is kind of weird. But yes, you can make it so that students don't have to log in with, with credentials or have an account or anything like that. If you're using Google for education, you can use your Google. No problem. You can use your Google account as well. So, which is nice. It all, syncs up. So yeah, so this is, I'm just going to, go forward to the slide that we were on. So it just is basically opening up my slides, but in a different, like in the PeerDeck, window, I guess, right? Talked about me. So we're going to try it. Not that one. So how are you feeling today? So this is a drawing answer or a drawing question, which means that you would have students draw their answer, which is pretty neat. I'm just going to move this window. here. There we go. And it tells me, I don't know if you can see this at the bottom, it tells me no responses, whether I'm presenting. I can make the code bigger if people need to see that. I can even add a new prompt, which is kind of cool. So I have 2 responses. So what's neat is I can go here to show responses, and then I can actually bring those up to show the class. And then so they can see in real time everybody answering. Just as we're kind of waiting for it to kind of, finish or whatever. At the bottom here, I can also, obviously close them, but I can also lock the screens so that then they're done. They can't do anything else. Unlock it. That's it. It's pretty neat. And you can, when you're done, go here. So this is a new type of question. It's a dragging question. Yes, so the dragging and the drawing are the 2 premium ones. And I'm not going to lie, PeerDeck is not cheap. Meaning it's about, I want to say it used to be about $10 to $14 a month, which I find could be a little bit expensive, but they have great pricing for districts and schools. So if you get more than 1 person on, then it's quite good. But yeah, the dragging and the drawing are. But if you're looking for just interactive slide decks to do kind of the typical number, multiple choice and text, then those ones are free. And so see, I can see how many people are already on it, and then I can go see their answers, which is kind of cool. And so this was a slide, I made the slide and I just inserted, 3 circles, made a Venn diagram. So online, synchronous, and face-to-face. Wow. And when the other responses come in, it's neat because on the dragging ones, it will show them all kind of together. So you can see all of the students where they answered sort of layered on top of each other, which is pretty cool. I just wanted to show you what kind of each of the, you don't have to write anything super consequential, but what do you wonder about today's topic? So these are the text ones, and these ones would be free or part of the free. And this was one of those slides that I actually grabbed from PeerDeck itself. So it was one that was already, one click, that's all I had to do once I found it, and it, inserted everything. Kind of an interesting point that I would like to make note of with the PeerDeck slides that you're inserting is that they're super inclusive. So there's a lot of people of color, people with disabilities, and just sort of a range of people, because that can be a concern sometimes when you're using apps that might have a lot of images and they just have a lot of people that look the same, and that's too bad. And then so when we show the responses, we would see like this, and then you would, if you have 30, 40 kids, you would have all of their little texts. And I think I even like how, curious how the answers display. Yeah, I like how they display kind of mimicking like a text, like an SMS text or a phone text. So I think that could be super engaging for kids, and you can kind of scroll down and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's pretty neat. This was a draw anywhere, but I'm just going to go for it. I just wanted to show you some of the socio-emotional kind of slides here. So what's filling your bucket today and what's draining it? And so you can have students drawing. And as you can see, so this is, one strategy for when you're doing online learning to really make sure that kids are like actually looking at each slide, because you're physically moving them forward on their device, and then every once in a while you're asking them to engage somehow, right? So sometimes it doesn't even have to be a super curricular, super deep question. It could even be, the click template that you're getting from PeerDeck, but it's just so, you're kind of drawing them back in again and really grabbing their attention and just making that connection tighter to what you're doing online. Okay. So that was just sort of one idea. Is there a limit to number of presentations in the free version? I don't believe so. I like the number of people attached to a presentation. I haven't met one. I've had up to 50 or so, but I would have to check that out. I can check that out after. I'm sure it's got to be on there. I'm sure it's a difference whether you pay or not, how many people you can have. And then for the number of presentations, I'm not sure. Oh, the number of presentations you can make. I don't believe so. Let's just check. And so these would be in Canadian dollars just because I'm in Canada. So here, free. It doesn't say that there was any, I think there used to be, but now they just, so it used to be the free version, you could only make so many presentations, but you had access to all of the features. And I think now you don't have access to all of the features, right? So you have some of the questions and not all of them. Cool. And then, yeah, the custom one is if you're doing for a whole school or for a division, then you'll want to get a quote. And like I said, Edmonton Public, so our public district here, they do offer that. And I'm just going to double check that I didn't forget anything here, and we're good. So until we meet again, you know what, I'm just going to keep it in here because it's a nice little, I don't have a whole lot of, how do you say, more interaction things for you to do. But I do have some, oh, I know what I wanted to show you. I wanted to show you at the bottom here. It just adds in, this is a PeerDeck draggable slide, and to edit the type of question, go back to ask students a question in the PeerDeck sidebar. So just also changes your notes a little bit just to let you know how to use that slide is all. There we go. So until we meet again, enhancing online second language learning. So it can be quite difficult when you're with students online. Like, how do you really keep them engaged and keep them, whether you're doing online learning with regards to posting things on a learning management system that they're working on, or if you're also, doing things via video, like a synchronous or asynchronous learning, either way, some of these strategies will hopefully help. Now, some of these are also could have been plugged into that, how to engage students with the video chat. So just keep that in mind. The next section is a little bit shorter because it's very specific to video chat in itself. So our first kind of topic we're going to talk about is communication. So the multiple platforms. So whether you're using a learning management system, that could be, Google Classroom or whatever it is, that's definitely going to help you with the communication piece. We're going to speak a little bit to that in a minute. And then we're going to talk about regular check-ins and feedback. So how you can do regular check-ins and how to, how to physically, how to give formative feedback to kids. So some examples, Google Classroom. We had a session on Google Classroom a while ago. So if you're looking for that, you can go to the ERLC or email me and I will get you the video to that. Here at Edmonton Public, we also have School Zone. Some of you might be using D2L or Moodle, whatever that may be. So think about really organizing mindfully. And I linked in here a specific slide or section of slides. So whenever I'm talking about something here today that links to something we talked about before, instead of talking too much about it, I am going to direct you back there. But we talked about getting organized. So just being mindful about how you're organizing your content. You don't want students to show up and have these recordings on YouTube too. Thank you very much, Jill, or Jill, for sharing those. Just being mindful that what you're doing with your with what you're posting isn't just, sort of a random catch bag of links or of activities, right? You want to have it really what you're doing or what's the most important, you want to have that first. So your frequent links, if you have a textbook or a specific site that you use a lot, you're going to have that right at the top. The current learning as well, right at the top. So this week, this is what we're learning. You're going to have that right when students log in, so they see that first. But you are going to have the past learning, extension activities, remedial activities, organized, but under that. And then really separate your learning and your emerging announcements. So for example, on Google Classroom, you might want to put the learning, so your units, your activities, that kind of thing, you put that all in the classwork section, and you leave the front stream just for announcements. Otherwise, that stream can just, again, become really jumbled. And you want students to know that when they get to, that announcement page, that's where they're going to get those announcements. So just, really keep in mind when you're organizing your Google Classroom or your school zone or whatever you're doing, that you're keeping it simple for kids. You don't want them to get lost in a bunch of links. So regular check-ins. One way to do this is, a Google form. You can do a Socrative and just sort of have a little daily survey where you're asking them, how are you feeling today? And those kinds of things. I've actually got some questions on the next slide here, some types of questions that you might be able to ask students. But you could also have a PeerDeck. So we showed you those socio-emotional learning slides, but you could maybe pick 2 or 3 of those that you're going to start every class with, or create your own. Or have a personal portfolio. So I have an exemplar here. I'm going to actually share the link with you. And this is where we've got some sort of examples of questions that you could ask. Just taking a second. There you go. I'm going to double check the sharing settings while you're doing that, because there's always one thing that we forget to. Okay, we're good. So doing a daily check-in with your students, it's sort of the digital equivalent of meeting them at the door and shaking their hand and just, checking in with them. And so I think this is a really powerful way to, again, keep them connected and engaged with what you're learning online, because they see that you still care, and then also you can get a lot of information from these kinds of things, from these check-ins. So there's an instruction, totally, if you need to make a copy of this, you can change it, do whatever you want. So here's some, how are you feeling today? Text or image. I'm tired, but otherwise I'm doing well. Is there anything you would like to share with me? I really like the video quiz. Can I help you with anything? And do you have anything you need to work on today? And so, just sort of, they might just see here, oh, I just need the link to this or that. And that's a really big barrier for the student, for them to be able to learn, and a really small one for you to break down, right? So, and then on the last, I had sort of a reflection page, or, if you wanted them to write a bigger reflection, you could give them questions here. And just sort of every day when they go here, there's a check-in or a reflection slide. So if you wanted to change the questions or whatever, and you can have the students, they have their own, but it's, shared, everyone has their own copy in Google Classroom, so you can obviously see them. And I think it could be helpful for them to see the progression of their learning. So every day you're adding a new slide, and to just kind of see. And the student response to the how are you feeling slide, is it viewed? Yes, so only by the teacher. Do you mean so on this, the check-in survey, this one would be just the teacher, because this is a slideshow that's only shared with the teacher. So you would, for example, post it on Google Classroom as make a copy for each student. Now with PeerDeck, if we were to do one of those slides before that had the, draw how you're feeling today or whatever, if you decide to show the answers, then yes, then you're showing them to everybody. So you might want to, before you share your screen, just, double check that. That's a really great question. Just Close this. So yeah, it's a little check-in survey if you want to make a copy. It's kind of like a little portfolio for students, and then there's some examples of questions that you could use if you so choose. So to change that, you go into View Master, and then you can actually change the questions. You can change the backgrounds, whatever kind of you would like to do with that. Oh, and then virtual office hours. If you're ever looking to set up a virtual office hours, if you create a Google form that says, for example, a multiple choice question where you have the little time slots, and then you use Choice Eliminator, which is an add-on. And what that does is anytime a student chooses a time slot, then it takes it out for the next student to choose it, so they can't choose it. So it's like them reserving that slot, and the slot gets taken away for the next person. And so you could, if you have a 1 hour every week where you're available to meet on Google Meet with students and have them, pick little 10-minute time frames or whatever. Okay, stress check. I just thought I'd throw this in here to see how you're feeling so far with regards to our learning today. So my stress is at a 0. Is sort of, I'm in a good space, I can focus. 5, something's bothering me, but I can still focus. Oh, there's the doorbell, but this isn't my house, so I'm not answering. And I can't manage my emotions or behaviors right now. And we got a bar. We're pretty good. That's awesome. I wouldn't be offended if you're not feeling that great. So formative feedback. So we all know that, and the research is quite clear that when students get feedback, and the sooner the better, and feedback that is targeted, that they learn better, right? So we want to also have, when we have so many students as language teachers, we often have large classes or we have mini classes, and so providing that feedback in a timely manner can be really difficult. One way to do that is to automate when it's appropriate. So if it's a simple matter of, yes or no, right or wrong, then you can do that in Google Forms, in PeerDecks. They get their little summary docs. So if you just want them to, say that, oh, you said C, but it was A, the right answer, then they can get that information quite quickly using technology, using whatever student response system that you're using. What you want to put some more time into is creating rubrics and creating those criteria with students, so that when you've got a larger task that's going to have a more in-depth evaluation, that rubric and those comments are really going to give some deep feedback to your students. And if you're spending a lot of time creating the criteria, think about ways of creating those criteria so that they can apply to different projects. So for example, if I'm teaching Spanish in a classroom, I'm often going to be doing projects that have like an oral interaction piece or conversational piece, and probably a written piece. Obviously, you're also doing reading assessments, and you're doing, presenting your oral production speaking assessments and things like that. But for the most part, a lot of my projects are going to have oral interaction, conversation, and written piece. So when I'm creating the criteria with students, in the beginning of the year, we're going to focus not on this specific project, whatever the specific project is, but looking at it from this is an oral interaction and a written piece. So how are we going to, create criteria that are going to meet many different types of oral interactions and written pieces. And I think that's great for students too, to really think about what makes up the language, right? And that metacognition about, what is a conversation and things like that. And then when you're doing comments in student docs, personally, I'm a fast typer, but I still can't type as fast as I can speak. And so with Mote or Kaizena, so 2 different extensions / add-ons, you can leave voice comments. And so what that looks like, I actually have Mote on this computer. And so if let's pretend that I had students in this survey, and I wanted to, I'm tired but overwhelmed, overall, I think that's supposed to say I'm doing well. And let's say I wanted to add a comment. So I would right click and say comment. And then I can just click this little button here, or hold it if I want to make a little notebook, which is the comment kind of goes outside. But I can add a voice comment right here. Okay, it's going to make me go through all of the things first, so I'm not going to worry about it this time. But it's also super easy to do from your tablet or your phone. And so adding Kaizena, same thing. And it's all up here. I can access it. And so this is the add-on version of Mote, which means that it's, again, like kind of tricks out Google Slides and Google Docs. Okay. So yeah, and I think too that sometimes students don't read our comments, but if it's a voice comment and they can hear you, I think that can, make a bit of a difference sometimes. So another way to keep students engaged when you're working with them online is to bring in as much authenticity and choice as you can. So talking about authenticity first, when we talk about authentic input, we're talking about what people who are speaking that language, like what native speakers of that language, would be listening to, reading, writing, and what kind of media are Spanish speaking people in South America and in Spain, what are they listening, what are they watching on YouTube, what social media, what Instagram accounts are really popular, or which singers can we follow from the target language on social media. Looking at target language blogs, news sites, television shows, all of these things are so easily available online, and many of them for free. And with the regards to TV, a lot of times if you have a streaming service for your own personal use at home, there will be international and international series and movies and things in all different types of language. I'm watching a really interesting French TV show right now from France. Another thing to do is crowdsource from Facebook teacher groups, and crowdsource from your students. So when I'm talking about students, it could be in general. So when you have students who are finished, an activity early, it could be an early finisher activity to go find some French singers or go find me some Chinese speaking bloggers or whatever it might be. The other thing is, I know that here in Canada, in Alberta, when we're teaching, for example, French as a second language or Spanish as a second language or whatever language you're teaching, Punjabi, you would probably have students in that classroom who have advanced language proficiency. Maybe they came from a Spanish bilingual program or a Chinese bilingual program. Maybe it's this person moved from a Francophone country, whatever the case may be. And so those students are like little nuggets of cultural gold that you need to mine in your classroom. And so you're going to pick their brains for, appropriate yet authentic singers, TV shows, funny videos on YouTube, that kind of thing. And then from Facebook, so for example, we have a French second language teachers in Alberta group that you could go and, what singers do your students listen to, or what TV shows are popular in this language. And so check out Facebook for some teacher groups and in the language that you're teaching, or for example, there's a Google Classroom for MFL teachers, so modern foreign language teachers, and there's a little bit, just ask other people. The last thing I'm going to say is this thinking outside the box. So here I link to a little bit on YouTube, sort of that section from the 4th series where we talk about YouTube. So if you want to check that out, that's going to be in there. Social media, there's that whole presentation. We had some great ideas for, I hope some great ideas for how to engage with social media and kind of creating social media posts. So how can you get that engagement without some of the without some of the more, unsavory parts of social media or some of the more dangerous parts with students online. And then thinking outside the box, I put this here because sometimes there's these little nuggets of websites or apps that you might find that you might not think that it has a lot of linguistic input, but you might be able to get a lot of engagement and actually get some cultural input from that. So I put this here. There's two websites that I'll specific websites I'll bring to your attention. And then I'll also point out that you can search for traffic cams, live traffic cams in many cities around the world. So Window Swap is kind of cool. It's a website that opens up a window to a random place in the world. And so it can be just sort of neat as a writing prompt, just a way to get students kind of out of the classroom. I mean, there's so many colors and objects and things that you can talk about and different weather patterns. And, I can just see endless possibilities with regards to window swap and how you could use that in the classroom. And then Drive and Listen is kind of cool. It's where people have their dash cams on and there's the local radio. So you can like drive through the streets of Paris and listen to some local radio. Play a game of I Spy. Yeah, writing prompts. What do you see? What would you do if you lived here? Describe the weather. It could be, what do you think is going to happen next? Who do you think lives here? Describe the person who lives here. What are they doing right now? Because sometimes you can see animals coming in and out of the windows. And so, there can be some different things that you can do and just sort of get some different cultural input in there. Okay, now with regards to choice, this is a huge one, and I think it seems like a lot more difficult than it has to be sometimes. So first of all, why choice is a little bit about why choice is so important. And it's going to come down to a lot of the principles in UDL, or Universal Design for Learning. So allowing students to choose the format in which they're going to demonstrate their learning is not only a powerful tool for increasing engagement, but it's also going to make sure that they're choosing a format that is kind of best suited to their learning, and really going to GeoGuessr. Oh, thank you. Another good site. I'm actually going to add that into the slideshow afterwards. So it enables you to easily adapt the expectations for students who might be working above grade level, or maybe they're working below grade level, without drawing attention to it too much. So you might have, for example, a project that you have in mind, and maybe you can give students a choice in 3 or 4 different ways that they can present the written content. Oh, this is my Move It app. That's actually a hidden hint for later. So I'll come and show you later. So for example, maybe you have different templates, and maybe one of the templates has a lot less writing that's required, and you might be able to kind of suggest that template to a student who is struggling. And so they're you're not bringing it up that, oh, look, the student has to get like the simple project. It's just that all students have the choice of doing these 4 different projects, and I always used to add at the end, or if you have another great idea, come tell me. And then also having multiple formats is a little bit selfish because it saves you from having to mark 350 of the exact same thing. So projects, and then the criteria, again, when students have a choice in how they're being evaluated. So when you're co-creating the criteria with them, they feel like they have a lot more ownership in that. And not only do they understand the criteria better because you've spent quite a bit of time discussing it in class and co-creating them, but they really can take ownership in that learning and feel like they have had some choice in that, right? Even though we all know that as teachers, when you're co-creating criteria with students, you're kind of guiding them in the direction that you need them to go, right? Another choice that you can leave students that's super easy is the choice in conversation topics. So maybe at the beginning or partway through or at the end of your online lesson, and then again in your face-to-face lessons, you give students like 5 minutes to go meet in breakout rooms online or in little groups once we get back to, no more pandemic, and have them, just talk about whatever you want. I've linked here a little resource that is actually a video series, and one of them is about where is it here, authentic conversations, classroom routines. And so this is really neat because it's a teacher that she did this in her classroom in junior high, and she had sort of a little book that she would give students some sentence starters in that, and they were just had their conversations. What I would find super difficult there is like, how do you start? And so what's great is the teacher in this video shows you how to implement that routine, and then how you kind of build on it and get students to the point where they can speak for like 10-15 minutes just on their own, all in their target language, about topics of their choosing. And I mean, isn't that, and the students like, so if we can just like talk in Spanish for 45 minutes and we don't have to learn anything, and you're like, yes, exactly. So I keep going to the, okay, products of learning. So we talked about in our last session about social media copycats, and so I've linked that there. But another thing I wanted to show you is choice boards. So this is actually hint here, or a double tip, because one, it's a tip of here's a choice board, and think about using this for other things. And then the second is, if you teach French, this Many Musicale was pretty amazing. Well, let me tell you just 2 minutes about this. And if you teach French as a second language, you need to do Musical Many next year. Basically, there's some teachers in the United States, and they pick 16 French songs, and then they have them go up against each other every week, and students vote on the winner, and then there's a big winner at the end. A bunch of these legit French-speaking pop stars have done like live streams with students. The students, you'll see here on the choice board that some of the choices are, for example, leave a YouTube comment, and the singers are like writing back to them. They're sending them private messages back, just saying, thank you for listening to my song. So this is a choice board. Basically, the students would start here, view the playlist, which is up here, all the songs, and then complete your bracket. There's a whole website with more instructions on that. And then to create, make a copy of this document and put your name in the title. Then they're going to complete as many of the squares as they like, but at least 6. So I like how they say that. Instead of just saying complete as at least 6 squares, they say first complete as many as you'd like, and then add in then at least 6. And then when you're done a square, so for example, this one, you just make it green. So we're just going to go up and grab the bucket, and we've already made it green, meaning that I finished it. And so when the students, each student gets their own choice board, when you upload it to, for example, Google Classroom, it would be, make a copy for each student. I took out the password here because this was the actual Flipgrid for the Many Musicale. But yeah, and so the kids just, and this one's kind of a fancy looking one, but it can literally just be like 9 or 12 squares, however many squares, and you kind of put a little task in each square, and the kids pick their own. And so they're doing some writing, some listening, a little bit of everything. It's kind of a neat way to just, give them some choice. And like I said, not mark like 400 Instagram, what's this one? Oh, so they have to like just write a message or like a comment on YouTube, but I don't want to read like 400 comments on YouTube. You know what I mean? I'd like to, a YouTube comment, and then I can read a Twitter one, and then I can, they're a little bit different. Otherwise it gets boring. And then extension activities. So I don't know if you've seen these Bitmoji classrooms. They're kind of all the rage this year. But a neat idea might be to have students make their own Bitmoji classroom, Another idea is you have the Bitmoji classroom, and each, so they're made in Google Slides. I'm just going to show you one and explain that way. And it looks like a classroom or a room. You could have it outside. And you're just going to insert images that have a transparent background, and then you link them to things. So this one I linked to Idelo. You could very easily as well link this to a Google Doc, and then in the Google Doc it says, go to this website, do this activity, or you might have some more instructions to it. So if you think that just the link isn't sufficient enough, then link to a Google Doc that then tells them what to do. This one was to drive and listen. This one is to a French radio coffee break French, a podcast, and things like that. So it can be as simple as when you're asking students to do extension activities, or if you have some extra time and they can actually choose what they're doing, or you can make a sort of project out of, find 4 things in the classroom to do, and then, write about it here. Or you can also have students make their own Bitmoji classrooms, or have, each student add one thing to your classroom, that kind of thing. So just giving them some choice is really going to engage them. And then again, it's that kind of automatic differentiation as well. It's just an easy way to differentiate instead of specifically choosing, the student's doing this project, this one's doing this one, and everything else. Is there any questions or anything that you'd like to ask or bring up? Well, that's time. Embed audio into Google Slides. Yeah, using Moat, and then you replace the image with a Bitmoji.
I was just going to say, yeah, I think that's a really nice idea. It was an idea I picked up from the Bitmoji Craze for Educators Facebook group, which is incredible. You can insert audio into Google Slides, right-click the loudspeaker icon and click Replace Image, and then you can choose, say, a Bitmoji character, and then you can record your voice, giving like a clue in the target language. And then the idea is that the students then have to work out what the answer is based on some clue in the room. So you have like multiple rooms set up, like a type of scavenger hunt, which is quite fun.
So it's almost like a Bitmoji classroom breakout room.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's nice because awesome. It means you click on the Bitmoji and then you hear the audio. So it's the Bitmoji becomes the prompt image to run the audio.
Yeah. That's perfect. Yeah, and you can get your Bitmojis with the app too, or with the extension, I mean, to add them in. Yeah. So if Rochelle and Ramona weren't here last time, then that's... Look, I changed it back to English. Figured out how. It was in French for a while. Go figure, right?
I've discovered a really cool way of recording the screen and turning it into an animated GIF called gifcap.dev. So I made a animated GIF showing how to change the language of the Bitmoji Chrome extension, and then saved it as an animated GIF, which is quite cool.
Oh, perfect! I love GIFs for the for little tech tutorials, because a short tutorial is great. If you can show me in a GIF, then that's the $60 million thing right there.
Well, I'd really recommend checking out gifcap.dev. I'll put it in the chat as well. It's brilliant.
Thank you. That's awesome. Welcome. So our next thing here, so we talked a little bit, we talked about communication, choice, authenticity. The next one was collaboration. So keeping those kids engaged in line, it's, in class, we can do group tasks. We can have them get into little group conversations or trios or, pairs, whatever we want. And online, it can be a little bit more difficult. Made a lot easier with breakout rooms through Zoom and through Google Meet. But there are, you can also do more than just have them kind of go out to breakout rooms and talk. Get them actually learning together and creating something together. So in session number 2, we talked a little bit about group learning tasks. So I'm just going to link that there and just let you know that it's there for you to look at if you decide that you would like some ideas on some group learning tasks. One thing that I like to keep in mind when I'm doing a group task, so I'm just going to kind of cycle through these and let you read it as I'm talking here a little bit. But one thing to keep in mind when you're doing a group learning task is how you're going to assess this. So if it is a summative assessment, you need to make sure that you can like single out the kids to be able to mark them, right? So for example, something like this, where they were creating this poem together, I wouldn't do this as a summative mark or as a mark that actually counts, as we say, because I don't know who wrote what, right? And so there's no way for me to be able to be sure that you know, the students are getting marked for what they actually can do in language. Whereas if I'm doing a class visual dictionary, I can see what each kid is doing, but again, that's not really a summative kind of assignment, right? Oops, sorry, it just unplugged and plugged back in there. So some other things that you could do, for example, if you did a video, if students are working on videos together, so like a lip sync video, they could do like that selfie cam jam. So like I think it's the Bare Naked Ladies where they did like each one of them are in different places in Canada and they do selfie videos of them singing along to song or lip syncing to a song, and then it all comes together in kind of a grid. But that's the kind of a metaphor for the group projects that are perfect for summative marks, because you can see each kid doing their own thing, and so you can easily kind of mark that person, but at the same time they're creating a product together and they're collaborating, and they're, you know, meeting to come up with a theme and, you know, how are we going to make this, things like that. Another idea might be, for example, that like a zombie apocalypse survival task, and they have to come up with a playlist of motivational music, and they have to come up with a this and a that, and so they're creating this product, but then at the end each student is going to you know, have their own little reflection or their own instruction manual or something like that. That's what the summative mark is going to be. So you're really going to take advantage of all those collaborative apps. So especially Google Drive, you're looking at Docs, Slides, Jamboard, all of that. Padlet is pretty good. Flipgrid is my new favorite. That's where students can upload like selfie videos and images and stuff to you know, kind of, it sort of mimics like an Instagram feed. It's kind of neat. So if you, let's check our time here. I've actually got quite a bit of, we're right on schedule. So why don't we do, I'm going to open up Padlet and Flipgrid, but I'm going to suggest that you try Flipgrid. I think we've done a Padlet in a couple other sessions with these same people. And so, okay, where's my chat? Oh, there it is. Dev. Thanks for sharing that, Joe. So again, you can join with Google or Microsoft, which is great because I've noticed a lot of school districts are kind of either using Google or Microsoft. So they've kind of, you know, really nailed down those educational ones. So I've done most of this from my phone, and it was pretty slick. It was pretty easy. Let's put this down. And so this was just the first, I just put a, you know, easy one of message of positivity. And you can add responses in here. And so here's a selfie video that I added, and, you know, each person would add their own little video, but they can also add text and things. You can like it, and then you can have kids. So not only are they creating the video, so you've got kind of a spoken or oral production kind of task, but you've also got them watching other students' videos. So you've got that listening piece, and then you can have them go commenting. So you've got a written piece. Once the comments get going, then they're going to be reading other comments before they're writing theirs, and so you can really stretch that engagement quite far. And I think that I feel like students would like really engage with Flipgrid. It's a pretty cool little thing that you can do. Now, the only thing is, even if you are, if you, as I was talking, you recorded a response and you submitted it, it takes about 2 or 3 minutes to get loaded in. I'm going to refresh just in case, but the last time I did it, it took me a few minutes. So it's just going to make me log in. Sorry about that. So yeah, it won't, it takes a few minutes to log in, so I won't worry about it now. But yeah, if you get a chance, definitely check out Flipgrid and, you know, have students, you know, create those kinds of, you know, create things together, answering assignments. So each student has their own like video response, but then they're going and responding back and forth. And so they're really, you know, getting that kind of social interaction a little bit. So engaging students online, another way is to the gamification. So again, super effective in a face-to-face setting. But now that we're online, we're going to think about how can we take some of those classroom games that the kids already know. They already know the rules. They already know how to play that. How do I just like onlineify it and make it so that we can play this game on Zoom or on Google Meet or, you know, however we're meeting online. So you might have new rules. So for example, like you can't disturb your parents who are working from home, or you can't, you know, leave the house or whatever that might be. Some examples of easy ones, bingo, charades, scavenger hunt. Go bring me something that's blue and show it to your, you know, show it at the camera, that kind of thing. Super easy to do, and you're just bringing it online. And especially if you've played the games in class, right? So they already know the rules, and the only extra piece that you're adding on is the, you know, how do we play this online kind of an idea. Student response systems. So when we're looking at, you know, bring in a Kahoot, a PeerDeck, a Padlet, Google, maybe not Google Form, that's not really game. Socrative, especially if you do the space race type, you know, get some competition, get some games, and it's really just gonna kind of up a little bit. So we can all ask kids to just pick ABCD or like fill in the blank or write, you know, write the right response here or whatever. But if you're all of a sudden turning that into a Gib kit or a Kahoot or a Socrative, it just makes it that much more interactive and that much more engaging for them, right? So there's the link there to there. And then check out online Breakout EDU rooms. So I'm a big fan of Breakout Rooms. I don't know if these are popular everywhere. So the Breakout Room, Breakout EDU started, it's literally a box, and it's got, it's closed with like 6 different locks. And in order to unlock the locks, you have to like figure out some clues, and it could be things posted around the classroom or whatever it may be. And it comes from the idea of the, you know, that breakout room phenomenon where you meet with friends and they lock you in a room and you have to like find clues to figure out how to get out of this room. And so this teacher, James Sanders, who's, you know, worked at the White House and things with regards to educational technology, he created these breakout boxes. And now, and not just since the pandemic, even before, but now it's even more, is we have digital breakout boxes. So for example, it might be a Google form and you have to answer like 5 questions. And the questions are, you know, it might just be what is the first code, and you have to, you know, go through a website or go through a slide deck or something like that to kind of find these clues, or go through a Bitmoji classroom to find these clues that are going to give you the correct answers. So this is the sandbox for Breakout. What's really cool is you can you can filter by subject. And I highly suggest the holiday ones, the foreign language. There's only one that says it's foreign language, but the English reading, like a lot of these are very adaptable to foreign language if you can do a little bit of translating and at least give you some ideas, right? Grade levels and that kind of thing. And so just open up maybe here's a Star Wars one. And so this one I might have to, of course, I take one that needs something else. Oh, no, entry, there we go. In a series of puzzles. And so this one would be great for English as a foreign language. It doesn't look like it's one that you're going to be able to translate. Of course, I picked one that happened to be on Deck Toys. But any of the sites ones or the Google Forms ones, super, super, super easy to change. And yes, just a note about it being in for Chrome. The simplest breakout, like online breakout EDUs, are just a simple Google form. And then, for example, Bitmoji Classroom or a Google Slides or Google Images that's got some things linked. And that's all it is. So for example, students would go to the Google Classroom and I would know that, I would go to the Bitmoji Classroom and I know that when I hover on a specific, oops, I'm trying to get back to my presentation. Here we go. When I hover over a specific thing, a link comes up. When I click on that, it takes me to a website and there might be, you know, 4, 5, 6, 7 somewhere on the website. And I know that that's got to be a code, right? So yeah, check out Breakout Rooms. If you've ever done the breakout boxes, the online versions are pretty neat. So what other games can you think of that you do in class that you'd be able to do online? So we had the example of like bingo or charades, but what other games can you think of that you could do online? And or, so if you can't think of a specific game, can you think of another rule for when you're playing online that you would need to, you know, let students know? So we talked about, the last one was, for example, you know, if you're doing the scavenger hunt, bring me something that's blue, you're not going to have students, you know, interrupt their parents who are working or their, you know, siblings who are maybe doing some online learning. And so this is just a PeerDeck, write your answer, or in the chat as well. That's totally cool. You don't have to join the PeerDeck. Any other games or rules that you could think of that might translate nicely to online? Oh, bingo using Jamboard in the Cree language. That would be great. That's a great idea. Yeah, Jamboard's pretty neat. That's a new one that came out right after the pandemic, and it was sort of just perfectly timed, wasn't it? You could also have with a PeerDeck drawing question, or with like Google Drawings, if you don't have the PeerDeck Premium. I'm thinking with Aboriginal languages, you could have students like, and if you're saying something, they have to write it out and then they share their screen with you so you could see it. But on PeerDeck, they would be able to see it right away. Yeah, Nearpod as well. That's a good one. Thank you for bringing that up, Ramona. Yeah, and same with, you know, where you're describing something and the target language, and maybe they're drawing what they hear. It's a pretty easy game that you can do. Chinyali. Oh, thank you, Joe. So shared some webinars with some things. Chinyali. Very cool. I also kind of like those chain games kind of things. So where you might have a question or even an exit slip. And so you might have them answering some kind of a question, or, you know, tell me your favorite this or that, or whatever it might be. Tell me what you think of what we learned today, whatever. And yeah, you pick one student, or you have the first student in the chat to put in their name, gets to go next. And so it's kind of gives them a little bit of competition because they want to get in there. You don't want to wait too late because you can't repeat the kids before you. So you don't want to be last and have, you know, 40 good sentences taken away from you. But at the same time, they can choose when they're ready. And so that can be helpful. Oh, making a breakout room with Geniali. Oh, thank you very much, Joe. I'm just going to click on it to show you what that looks like. Yeah, that looks just like you right now. That's awesome. Oh, and a French teacher too, which is great. We have a lot of French teachers here in Canada. So demonstrate a variety of ways she uses Geniality to gamify her language lessons. Perfect. Yeah, so a little more investment, a little more time investment, but so worth it, right? Because not only do you get a lot of bang for your bucks, you get a lot of learning out of it from students, but that's also something that you can reuse, right, over and over and over again. And so you know, it does take a little bit of time to make them, and that's where I would suggest that you maybe partner up with some teachers in your school or in your division that you know, if everybody makes one, then all of a sudden you've got 5 or 6 great breakout rooms. Okay, I'm just gonna forward here. And we're going to talk a little bit about specifically video chat. So we, you know, all of the kind of strategies that we talked about before are going to apply for video chat, but especially in a video chat or only in a video chat, we really want to be very cognizant of routines, of course, but have your video chat routine. So for example, I think we've all gotten used to the, I can tell that you participants already know about the, you know, you mute when you join a call with a lot of people, the whole, you know, what are you going to do when you want students to ask a question? So for example, for me, I prefer people just put them in the chat whenever they have a question. Some people prefer that students wait until a specific time, or you might want them to click that raise your hand and have them ask the question. But, you know, kind of figure out what your routines are and make or what your video routines are and just really enforce those. And then your classroom routines, again, onlineified. So, oh, thank you very much, Joe. So Joe's just sharing some links in here. And do you mind, Joe, if I put those links in the slideshow after and your link to your, you know, say shared by Joe? That's okay. Thank you very much. So yeah, your classroom routines, what can you onlineify? So for example, in my classroom, I always used to start with a do now. So they would come in and they would write like the I can statement in the target language and the date, and then we had like a little activity we would do. Lots of times halfway through, I would stop for a little movement break. And then at the end of the class, I always had an exit slip. And so I would keep those, you know, kind of 3 anchoring activities. I would keep those routines even when you move online, just so that students sort of still know what to expect. It's a little bit of that familiar. And then routines, what's great about routines is you don't have to explain the instructions all the time, right? Because the kids know the how to do it. You're just changing the question or changing the thing, right? Give students lots and lots and lots of interaction time. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in depth here in just a few seconds. And after we talk a little bit more about routines, and we're going to talk about flipping time. Oh, and the hidden one, that custom cursor for Chrome is great for video lessons because you can get a big flashy cursor. It's a little hard to miss. So why routines? I don't know, but students are, it's kind of like herding bunnies sometimes, right? And so whenever you can get a routine in there, it's really going to make a huge difference with regards to how they engage and just being able to, especially like herd them from between transitions, right? So you want to establish those routines and then really reinforce them all the time. The consistency is key. And it's kind of the hardest thing sometimes, I think, to, right, I have to do the exit step today or whatever it might be. Think about what routines are going to make the video chat run smoothly, and then which classroom routines you want to identify. We talked about that. So the raise the hand to speak. The other thing is the timer for the activity. So there's the online stopwatch has got a lot of really neat ones. And just that you want to kind of display a time whenever you have students going off into a breakout room or going to think about an activity or, you know, doing something that you want to give them a time frame, and then present your screen with the stopwatch so that they can, you know, be aware and visually have that visual cue as to when the activity is going to be finished. Camera on or off. So that is going to be your decision. Do you want students to have their camera on or off? Another idea is to maybe have a custom background based on the current topic. It's just a little way to kind of get them a little more engaged and again, giving them a little bit of choice, and they get to be silly, but within some parameters, kind of, right? And so that can get the sillies out, right? Are there any other video chats or routines that you've used? So, for example, raising the hand to speak, you just put them right into the chat. You don't have to put them into PeerDeck. You know, how do you handle having so many students when you're chatting with them on video? I personally, like, I'm not a huge fan of the raise hand because I seem to like miss it. So I always would use the chat more just because I like having everything right there. And then I can acknowledge to the student that, like, I've seen your question and I'm going to answer it this time. So starting in the session with an attendance question, has the teacher start with that student ask students? Yeah, so is it sort of that chain, like you ask the question to one person, they answer it, and they like volunteer the next person, and so on and so on? Or, you know, whoever is ready next goes next, or yeah. Go ahead, Rochelle.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, that's what I mean. I've just, with second language learning, obviously trying to get them not just to be able to answer questions, but to ask the questions too, right? So, and it just keeps everyone on their toes because they don't know who's going to call on who next. So, yeah, that's one of the things that I've been doing, and I guess I'll be doing again tomorrow since we just got pushed online.
Yeah, our whole Edmonton Public School 7 to 12 is going online for those who aren't in our school division. We just found that out today. And with the attendance thing, because I always worry that if you do the like each person volunteers the next, that there'll be somebody who might get missed. But when you're doing it attendance, like nobody wants to be missed, right? Because then it says that they're not there, and they get the auto call from the school saying, you know, or the parents get the auto call saying that they were absent. So that's a great strategy.
Yeah, and I always have my list beside me, so I just check off who's gone. Like when we get to the end, some kids go, well, who's left? And so I say, well, call on George. And so yeah, because they forget who's been called on, but at least they can get a few in.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And then I always used to do the 2, you can't repeat the person before you. So otherwise they would just like say whatever the person before them said. Good. Are there any other video chat routines that you found super helpful in a second language setting? Or in a working with kids setting? Like when I'm working with adults, most of them have their cameras off. And like that's totally fine. I think if I was working with kids, I would want to see their faces. Okay. So we talked about, so those daily routines, bring those in. Resource formats, so keep those the same. Now is not the time to revamp how all of your stuff is going to look, right? So maybe your components, that sort of idea of the style guide. So how you're writing, you know, we all kind of have our own style when we're creating our own teacher created resources. And so try and keep some of those the same when you're going online, just so that students have some of that familiarity, right? Pictionary, charades, scavenger hunt, bingo, we talked about, but also the slideshow games. So Jeopardy, so there's Jeopardy Labs is a website that has free templates, so you can create your own or find Jeopardy games, and then they're all just housed on this website. It's super easy. Another one is Slides Carnival. So Slides Carnival, which I use for my slide decks. So these beautiful green slide decks are all from Slides Carnival. Thank you, Slides Carnival. But they also have a Jeopardy presentation background. And so you would, it tells you here how to edit, and there you go. And then each question here, you write the answer, and then it tells you which one. And so it's pretty cool. It all just, there you go. The next one that I thought was pretty cool is Monsters and Dinosaurs. Now, this is a link to a, so this guy's super helpful with regards to his YouTube channel. Has got a lot of great things to like tips and tricks for online teaching. This one was about top 5 apps to make virtual lessons interactive. And so he does this game where it's monsters and dinosaurs. And I'm just going to go forward here so we can see what it looks like. So basically, he has 2 slides. One slide. There you go. So one slide, so these might have questions or whatever it is. And so the kids would, you know, say, I want A1, and you click it and the little square goes away and there's either a monster or a dinosaur or an egg in there. And so it just depends on how many points they get. So this actually, you don't have to make anything, like you don't have to write in questions or anything. I'm just looking for his, here it is, and his monsters and dinosaurs. And all that happens is when I would click a square, the square disappears. And like I said, there's a monster, a dinosaur, or whatever, and each one is different points. And so he explains that in his game. I believe it's like you get 1 point, 0 points, you skip a turn or whatever it is. And so he would play that game where you would like orally just, you know, ask students a question in the game and you're presenting your screen. And then the monsters and dinosaurs template is just for the points. And so I like that because you don't have to create a new thing every time. You can just like, oh, we're at the end of class. Okay, I'm just going to ask you know, what color is this? And you hold up something and the first kid to answer, and then they pick you know, B5, and that depends how many points they have. So just super, super easy. And we kind of talked about that already. So breakout rooms if you're using Google Meet, but Zoom just has breakout rooms on its own, which is pretty neat. And so I put in some links there for some tutorials of how to use them. With Google Meet, there's a little more you have to do. Like you have to create the rooms and stuff, and then, but the extension here is a great help for making the breakout rooms happen. There's just a little bit more than with Zoom. You kind of click and say, I want a breakout room, I want 5 of them, and then it like shoves them all in there, and that's it. So serial conversations, like Rochelle mentioned, the sort of ask and volunteer answer kind of thing. So the teacher starts by asking a student the question, the student answers, and then they ask the question to a different student. And so they're volunteering the next student, and everyone kind of has to listen all the time because you don't know when it's going to be your turn. And then Flipgrid or Padlet or a shared slideshow. So that some ways to do some interactions, but more of a writing way. So maybe with Padlet or a shared slideshow, you can have students post some kind of writing thing, and then they're going to go look at everyone else's in the slideshow and kind of comment in the notes section in that. And so we've talked about that a few times throughout the series, so I won't talk too much more. And then really thinking about when you're in the video chat, you want to be flipping that time. And so what do we mean by that? Let's take a look. So we're flipping. What we mean by classroom flip, or why are we going to classroom flip? Let's just, why are we going to flip our flip the delivery of materials? So accessibility. By giving the content to the students all the time, they have that accessible to them 24/7, right? You're breaking down those barriers between the classroom and home, and really bringing the language home with them and bringing that learning literally home with them. They can access it whenever it's convenient for them. So whenever their parents and their siblings aren't also using the Wi-Fi and all of the devices in the house or whatever it may be. That idea of differentiation, so students aren't forced to engage with the content at your pace as a teacher, but they can engage with it at their own pace. They can watch and rewatch the video. They can actually slow it down if it's on YouTube, that kind of thing. And so they can really like make that content work for them. Authenticity. So watching a video for learning, like that's how people are learning now. Even pre-COVID, like kids are watching videos on their devices all the time. That's kind of their MO. And so they're really comfortable learning online and watching videos online. And so why not just give them that, right? It's more, it's authentic. So don't feel too bad. The processing time. So in a traditional classroom, you'd present some content and then you would have the kids like engage with it right away. Whereas if you're getting them that content presented at home in a video, they can have a little more processing time to kind of like noodle on it before they're coming into the classroom and being expected to like do something with this. And when I say coming into the classroom, obviously online, right? And then that's going to allow you to like maximize that video chat time so that the little time that you do have with them face to face on video is really going to be super targeted, and you're going to have the kids using the language, or your students using the language at that time, doing something communicative. So what are we flipping? In a traditional classroom, you would have that sort of like those lower level Bloom's taxonomy of the like, I'm presenting some information and seeing if you can kind of understand it. We have that in class, and then we give them these projects to do at home for homework. But when we're flipping, we're actually sort of doing the opposite. So for homework, we're going to give them the watch this video so you can know it a little bit and understand. So do some practice activities. And then when we're face to face, that's when we're really going to apply the learning and, evaluate, analyze, create, and really, get in deep and do things that students are going to need more support with, right? Because they don't need a lot of support to just sit there and listen, like to just receive content and maybe do some practice. What they really need the support with is all of this higher order thinking, right? So before, you might deliver the content in class and then they're applying the learning as homework. Whereas in a flipped classroom, the content is delivered as homework on a video or, a reading or whatever it might be. And then they're applying the learning in class, whether that be online or face-to-face. Don't flip everything right now. You're going to start small, curate some content. You're going to create some little video lessons. You're not going to try and make them perfect, right? You're going to find YouTube videos whenever possible that is going to teach the content so that you don't have to create your own video. You're going to look for podcasts, websites, blogs, and those, all kind of digital content that you can kind of curate and keep to be able to give students that as they're, receiving the content and learning piece. And then teach them how to watch a video for learning, right? They're great at watching funny cat videos, but watching it with an intention to learn and to like take concise notes or notes that are actually going to help them learn is really more difficult for them. And they really need our help with that. And so you're going to have to spend a little bit of time teaching them how to watch a video and also how to navigate your process. So what is your kind of routine going to be? I'm going to give you a video and then we're going to do this. You're going to watch a video and maybe it's going to be with an ed puzzle. So you can kind of get that, understanding as well and see if they've understood the content. And then how are you going to keep them accountable? So like we said, maybe having an ed puzzle, maybe they have a reflection or wondering. You're not just posting a video and assuming that kids are going to like watch this video and that's it, right? How do you know that they've previewed the content before they get to your class? So you really have to have even something as simple as they have to mark it done in Google Classroom. You know that they've at least opened the link, you know what I mean? But hopefully we're going a little bit further and they have to, show completed work upon, when they get to the get into the online classroom, they have to show you some notes. They, we might actually have questions like a Socrative, a Kahoot, or whatever. And then during the lesson, that's when you're going to be working with them, talking with them in breakout rooms, having them collaborate together on some kind of a project, having them have group conversations or whole class conversations, right? Where you're going to give them, those projects that they're working on, collaborative tasks, they can bring up all of their questions and concerns. You can bring up your questions and concerns, but really all of that stuff that you can't do without the teacher, that's what we're going to do in the classroom. And in the classroom, I mean online, obviously, but that's what we're doing when we're actually live with students. All of that passive stuff can happen before, right? And just in the last 5 minutes here, I wanted to touch on, hopefully someday we can go back to learning face-to-face. I'm kind of getting zoomed out with all of this online everything. And I think it'll be really nice when we can be back in our classrooms with our students, but then we can't just really pick up where we left off, right? Like we've had this at least a year and a half, maybe 2 years of sort of this weird in between different kind of learning, and we're all figuring out what we're doing. And so what do we do now that we're back face to face? So I want you to keep in mind, it's basically 3 main questions. What did they learn? What did they miss? And how are we going to fill in these gaps? That's it basically boils down to that. So what did they learn? What kind of language activities are students doing online a lot of right now? They're doing writing and reading and listening, and then they're doing maybe some prepared speech, so that or not so much the oral interactions, but the I've prepared something to say or a presentation in that. And then again, yeah, lots of reading and writing. If the teacher was able to find some ways to do listening activities, by videos, or whether it be Edpuzzle or Google Form or some kind of question and that. And so what did they miss? Obviously, so what did we learn? Ask them, very simply, just ask them. Have them do a self-assessment, maybe use the CEFR or the Common European Framework of Reference. So it's kind of, I could do this with the language, and really see, where do they think they are? What did they learn during all of this time online? Have them do a language passport or a portfolio, so they can, really dig into what they learned. And then check out, if you'd like to check out the community of targets. This is sort of a neat little thing, again, on the Edmonton Public Schools. I'm going to see if I can't find. So this was, we took our Alberta program of studies and married it with the CEFR. And so you'll see for each grade, there's sort of just here's the 10 things or so that each student should be able to do at that grade level. And so one way to use these is to simply have your students use it as a self-assessment. So maybe they color in green everything they can do on their own, and color in yellow everything they can do with support, and leave blank the things they can't do yet. And so they can actually just color that in, double click. You can do annotate on a PDF, or you can double click into the drawing. If you're in Edmonton Public Schools, you actually get this off of Connect, and you can double click in here, and they can change the drawings, right? They would each make their own copy. And then what did they miss? Lots of interactions and conversations. So we need to give them those, so much more. Conversations of their own choosing, a lot more difficult to do in the video chats, because I think a lot of teachers are keeping the class together, and it's a lot more difficult it can be more stressful to send kids out into these little breakout rooms and stuff. And then all these tasks that have them walking and talking and moving around the classroom, they didn't get a lot of that this year. So and they didn't get a lot of fun either. So these are what we're going to bring in next year, right? We also have to worry about not making our students hate the language. They've had a year of only online learning. And so I do think this real life tasks and the fun part is going to be super important next year, when we do see our students live again, that we just, help them find the love for the language again. So I think some of it can be lost. And so how do we fill those gaps? The self-paced learning, so that flip model will actually carry nicely into the face-to-face again. So where you have students, you know, maybe watching some videos or doing some of the lower level learning at home, and then in school is going to be stations. They're going to be having conversations, moving around, having fun, and actually using the language, right? Having some groups, peer tutoring is all really going to help fill in those gaps, right? And give students as many opportunities for conversations as you can. That's the next year is going to be a year of interactions, I hope. So, I mean, we all, you know, fly swap, ball toss, chain games, all of those kinds of things. We've all done the, you know, the speed dating conversations or serial conversations. The musical mini conversations is one where you might, you play some music and the students are walking around, and then when you stop the music, they pick a partner and they have to, you know, have a conversation for until the music starts again, that kind of thing. And sharing circles. So if you check out the Alberta Teachers Association has some great information on how to conduct a sharing circle. I'm actually going to link that into there. I'm not going to search right now because I want to make sure that I get the right link. But a sharing circle is a kind of a great way for students to sit around and talk and share what they've learned. And it can be really personal. It's also an Indigenous way of, you know, conversing and sharing in that. And so I think that bringing that into the classroom is super important. I think we get stuck too much in the like just in rows and things like that. And so a sharing circle is a nice way just to change that a little bit and really intimate, and brings those class together to interact. Okay, if you don't want to draw, you can also put into the chat, but I just wanted to show you more again, to show you with PeerDeck, a nice little end of the activity or end of the lesson activity slide that's already ready from PeerDeck. And so students can draw or type in things that they learned from that lesson. If you would like to have a go at it with the PeerDeck, please go for it. But don't feel obligated. You could also type into the chat. But it's a nice little, again, a nice way to just gather what the students have learned from your lesson, right? And a quick little snapshot, right? Now, the last thing I want to say about PeerDeck is that when students are done, they each get, you can give them a resume or like a summary, and they get, it's a Google Doc that has like a screenshot of each slide, and then like you answered this, oh, but the right answer was this, if you had put in an answer key. And so that's a nice little feedback for them, and pretty instant and automated, and yeah, pretty easy. So I'm just going to thank you to Slides Carnival again.